question before we went to break was, is anybody having issues getting cardio help disposables?
No, getting. Sorry. So it's been about a year now, and I've talked to people from other centers before that are not even aware of this, but getting issued a notice to everyone it vends to probably about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, claiming that it could not verify the sterility of its products. They've had some kind of ongoing sterility issue. Some of them have gone through the sterilizer multiple times. You're supposed to verify that each pack is intact before you open it. I mean, obviously, we're supposed to be doing that anyway. How often do people really pay attention to that? Probably not often. So our center got this notice, and UCSF said, we can't confirm that what you've been giving us is sterile. That falls on us if there's ever an infection issue. So all of our surgeons decided to stop using CardioHelp for quite a long time. We've started to sort of reintegrate them, but this is a problem that they claim has been ongoing for, I think at this point it's been about 3 years. This was circuits that were dating back 2 years before we even got the notice. So I'm curious if anyone else has heard about this, if anyone else's center put the brakes on getting products, CardioHelp specifically, because it is still ongoing. I talked to my rep last week. Curious if anyone else has had this issue or if anyone stopped using the product.
I had heard about it for Quadrox. I know Quadrox is done. I didn't know CardioHelp. Do you have you got something? Yeah.
Justin Sleesman, perfusionist at Stanford Children's Hospital. And yes, it's an issue. I don't work on the adult side anymore, but I'm in contact with the adult side quite often. And we are under the same roof, yet we've interpreted that information from Katinga in a different way. So on the adult side, they continue to use CardioHelp, and they now you're putting the onus on your administration, on your perfusionist to say it's okay. And so they're kind of removing themselves from that. So the risk is on you now, a little bit. On the pediatric side, we are using the Nautilus now, and we're not using the Quadrox of the CardioHelp system. Now, when it comes back, we might pivot back to that because we really enjoyed it. But even under one roof, we have two interpretations of is it okay or not to use CardioHelp. Oh, sorry, one more comment too. And the staffing models are so different too from the adult side to the pediatrics. On the adult side, maybe it's like your institution where we'll have one perfusionist running on 7 ECMO patients that are CardioHelp in comparison to the pediatric side where you've got 2 nurses in the room for that one patient.
So, any other comments on that? And anybody recently purchasing bypass pumps? Experience with bypass pumps, selection, or again, process that you want to talk about? Trials?
So with all these problems, back orders, question with contamination, it is also part of the standards and guidelines, right? About emergency use and having plans for this. So if anyone's having any pushback or trouble from their institution or management about having multiple vendors, about having more supply, you can refer back to AMSEC standards and guidelines to help support your argument.
So I'm just curious, we talk about, not being able to get oxygenators or tubing packs or whatnot, but a show of hands where it's actually postponed or canceled a case. Because it seems to me that in our institution, we just find a way. And that's always been the perfusionist motto. I'm not saying I love nurses and the like, but they might, cancel their shift or not show up and the case cancels. But for some reason, perfusionists, we always find a way. So I'm curious on, has your equipment shortages actually, as we're all experiencing, actually canceled cases or postponed cases at your institution? Because that's the way it probably would change for us if that happens.
And that's exactly it. We needed a change, and that's how we got a change. At one point, we had to tell the higher ups, the surgeons, that we have an issue, and that's how we generated change.
So I want to make a quick comment. Thank you. on what you said, Justin, about always finding a way. I think that's an incredible quality of a lot of perfusionists. I think having gone from being a perfusionist to a staff member to a manager, it's a very different perspective. And there was a breakout session and the words leave me, but a kind of an in-character thing that AMSEC did a number of years ago where they had a surgeon come in and say, I want to use a different cardioplegia today on this case. And so what's your answer? What's your response? Do you just figure out a way to do it? Or do you say no, because we haven't done this before and there's safety risks and all this different stuff? I've moved from being the cowboy that gets it done to being the person that says we need to have time to make sure we do this right, to make sure that we do it safely, to make sure we don't jeopardize somebody, because of that one, in my opinion, that one thing that you do right the first time is an N of 1. And sometimes, in my opinion, that's worse than an N of 0. Because now you think you've got it figured out, but you don't know what snake lives under the next rock. And so I struggle with that, but usually toe the line of, now, again, not having had to cancel a case yet because of that, so I've not been in that particular position, but I have put off doing certain things with our surgeons because they wanted us to do a new technique or a new thing, and just had to tell them, look, it's not like we probably can't pull this off, but if we do, we're going to get lucky, and we don't know what happens the next time, or something that I can't even think of because I don't have enough time crops up, and then we have trouble. So I think that's a risky proposition.
And I was just going to answer that earlier question. I have received pushback from administration because I've gone through periods where I couldn't get tubing packs. I've gotten tubing packs from other institutions to fill that void. Like you said, we make do. So I went to doubling my inventory, and I got a lot of pushback. But by the same token, I've not had to cancel a case. I've not had to tell my surgeons we don't have this or that. So
supply chain problems are no new problem. And if you've been in this business, you've seen the earthquake that Soren had, that shorted oxygenators. There's been other small ones, not unprecedented for what we have now. We've seen that in the past. You should have geared this for the future. We adopted a long time ago. We use multiple vendors. We keep all our reps in the loop, and they're all responsive to us because we all use them. I think if you're going forward, you should not just have one vendor. If you're going to be in that bed with one vendor, you're going to reap whether they can supply you or not. And then they may not, if you never gave them business before, they may never give you business again.
Hi, Jean Como, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, perfusionist. This is not about disposables, but we are in a position where we need to buy a couple of heater coolers, and I just kind of wanted to know everybody's thoughts. CardioEquip, things are recalled, and there have been so many issues with. The hospital is very studious with their budget and stuff, and it's like, why do we want to buy something that's had so many issues? So we ordered Hematherm. We also looked at Mr. Frosty. They didn't want to go to the expense of doing that since A, it's new and you have to do all the electrical stuff, So we ordered Hematherm, heater coolers, only to be told that we are no longer selling them in the United States. So what are y'all doing? I mean, help. They don't want to buy something that's had so much controversy, but there's just not a lot of choices. And I wanted to know what everybody's thoughts are, plus all the stuff the hoops we have to jump through with infection control with the CardioEquip.
Really
Help.
quick for the online audience, please move to the 4 to 5 session. There's a 4 to 5 speakeasy session, and you can put your comments in there. I apologize.
Just as Sorry, Dorothy Holt from Nationwide Children's. So just to speak to the multiple vendor, we moved to a multiple vendor system pre-COVID because we had some issues getting circuits and not more just pump packs from a specific vendor. And so we moved to that model prior to COVID. It's worked in our benefit during the shortage and everything like that because, well, frankly, we can lie to them about our numbers and we've been able to stockpile some things. So it's worked in our favor, but with the auctioneer shortage, we've had to actually make a lot of adaptations to our auctioneers just to make them work for our current patient population. So it's a lot of cutting, more risk of infection. So we prepared for it in our tubing, but we didn't prepare for it in our auctioneers enough. And I currently manage most of our inventory with 2 other people. And there are numerous products where we have second, third, fourth options, and we typically stockpile them now.
Any other comments?
Matt, fourth over, I'm from Georgia. In comment to the gentleman's comment back there about multiple vendors, that's an excellent idea. We got caught in a situation, it was kind of a trifecta where there was the earthquake, there was also some issues of all the resins that make polyvinyl chloride at the time, the way I understood it, were being held up in shipping ports. And so the other thing that happened to us is we had a situation where we're also gaining 2 new surgeons to come that were potentially going to double our volume, which they did. And we had a database changeover in materials management along with a management changeover down there. So when we went down to try and up our par level, we got a lot of pushback. So we met with administration, we got all that squared away. And then as the order went in, everything got pushed out through the new system somehow and back to the original par level. So ultimately, we found ourselves in a major shortage, and we called other vendors, and they're like, well, we can't take you on right now because everybody else was in a shortage and everybody else was buying things up. So the supply-demand curve shifted. And so we're calling around to other hospitals, hey, any 3/8 tubing you have, we'll take it, because we've got, 50 packs on the shelf, and we're gonna have to build circuits. So we met with infection control administration, and we found ourselves for almost 7 months building circuits in the OR, 6 at a time, and we saved all of our pre-made packs for dire straight emergencies type situation. And the surgeons said to us, look, we don't want to cancel cases, but we don't want to do anything that's unsafe for the patient either. So if that's the road we're going down, we need to know, but make it happen. And that's what we did. So we literally, between FX auctionators, the 6D duals, anything you could think of that we could get in auctionator-wise, AV loops, any kind of separate built filters with the Y already on it, the bypass line already on it, and we just assembled circuits. And we did cultures on them, and everything came back negative. And but it was a long road. Since then, we have 2 vendors now, and we, if we got 4 cases going, we use 2 packs on one and 2 of the different packs on the other. So we try and keep it 50-50 all the way down the loop. But it's a bad situation. If you ever find yourself in that, you realize I didn't see that coming, and you got to make plans, be prepared, have more vendors than one vendor.
Any other comments on that?
Since everybody's having comments with disposables, I've got 8 to 10 FX25s that I'll let go real cheap. My purchasing department kept ordering them despite the fact that we hadn't used one in 3 years, so reach out, I've got a deal for you.
Are they sterile though?
As I pass the mic to Justin for his comment, I'll reach back over to the question about heater coolers. We never stopped using the 3T. we worked with our legal and infection control department and our CE guys, and we continue to use them. We felt like they were the best item on the market, and we wanted to figure out how to keep using them, and we did so. We went through all the checking of our patients historically back 12 years to make sure there was no issues there. Anything new coming up, we have a lot of surveillance, and I'd be happy to chat with anybody about how we do it and keep them clean, because it's not just by the manufacturer's recommendation.
Thanks, Jim. You kind of pointed that question back to where I wanted to go on the heater coolers, because I don't think that question was answered. And we at Stanford Children's have been using, we had the 3Ts, and now we've been using Hemotherm CSZs, 2 of them. And we finally just made the leap and repurchased 3Ts. After talking to multiple programs about their safety protocols, their infection control, the samples you need to send out and whatnot. So I have some reassurance there, and we're going back to 3Ts.
We bought one Hemotherm before they stopped selling them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We did purchase one Hemotherm because we didn't really have a choice at the time, but we prefer the others, the 3Ts. So I guess we'll find out how to jump through the hoops.
Cat Cubes from St. Louis, Cardinal Glennon. We've been talking with our Levanova reps with the 3Ts, and apparently that's the new product coming out next year they're working on. So I don't know if I believe it, but that's what we were told for anyone still looking for something.
Sorry, one more comment too, back to the gentleman that had the tubing pack problems. And I face this too, and the fact that our team wants to have one company and have the oxygenator and the tubing pack all together. And I think what we've learned, CardioHelp is a fantastic device, but if you go down that road, that you're kind of opening up for problems as you try and execute cases. So just word of caution there. But I get a lot of pushback of like, why don't we have our tubing packs and our oxygenators together? I'm like, you got to hedge a little bit with the companies, and that's important to keep it moving forward.
So, any other comments there?
Quick comment on the 3T. I think that's been, obviously, it's been something anybody that's had them has faced the challenges. I will say, we've had them from day one, and this program I'm currently in, I've been in with them for 12 years, and from day one we had it. And we followed the IFU for the cleaning schedule. Since, as time has gone on, it's changed. And what had happened was, in the initial build-out phase of those heater coolers, during the testing, they left a lot of them wet, as you probably all know. And therein lies where a lot of the mycobacterium problems came from in the beginning. Since then, it used to be, you bleached them once a week or once a month, and then it became bleach every other week, and then the weeks in between, you just drain them, fill them, and put in the peroxide. And of course, after you bleach them, you use the peroxide as well, 150 mLs of peroxide. Then you have to do the mixing procedures, make sure you mix the cardioplegia side and the water bath side so that the peroxide is equally distributed, and then you test that water with a peroxide test strip. Well, we followed the IFU from day one, we've documented it from day one, and the issue we were having was sometimes getting bleach from the engineering department. So we call materials management and say, hey, we'd like to add bleach to our stock so that we can just order it. And they're like, well, why do you want bleach? So we opened up a can of worms. Next thing you know, infection control's calling us and said, well, the IFU says you have to send out samples every week. Have you guys been sending out samples for mycobacterium? We're like, well, no, because we met with you guys, several years ago and we agreed we weren't going to do that. So now we're sending out samples every week. And by the way, that costs $3,000. So we have 4 of them. And what we do is we decided, well, if we were to sample all 4 at once, which we don't really have the manpower to do that, staffing wise. So, and one comes back positive, then what do? They all 4 come out of service, right? And then we're not doing any hearts, right? So we're on a rotational schedule where before we bleach one, we'll test it and send it out. Then we'll bleach another one, and then the other 2 are just the drain fill peroxide. So we've been doing that so that every week one gets done. So far, we're a quarter into it, 3 months now, and they've all come back negative. So now we're trying to go back to infection control and say, you know, look at what this is. I mean, I know you can't put a cost on safety. I understand that, but do we really need to do this every week? Should we do this, you know, once a month, or what is your recommendation on that? So we're fighting that right now. I don't know if anybody has any comments to what they would do in that situation, other than maybe get new heater coolers. And I don't know if that's really an option. Yeah.
So Jim Rager, Cincinnati Children's again and again and again. So we have a similar experience. What we found is that the routine every other week bleach versus drain was not often enough. We do heterotrophic plate counts every week. And our infection control team said if the heterotrophic plate counts come back 0, then there's nothing in there. By definition, it's heterotrophic plate count, it's heterotrophs, it's everything. So if there's no heterotrophs in it, there's nothing for the NTM to eat. So our process is, and we're incredibly well supported and very fortunate at Cincinnati Children's. We don't have to touch them. Our CE department does it for us. On Thursday nights, they come take them and they change the water. On Sunday nights, they come take them and they bleach them. So we reduce that every other week down to twice a week. On Sundays, they get the HPC counts. Our process is if the heterotrophic plate count comes back over 100, more than twice in a rolling 4-week period, then we send out an NTM. And if that comes back negative, we're good. We've been doing this for years, doing it this way for years, because in 2015, when the thing came out and CE was taking care of everything, we found out that CE wasn't taking care of everything, and they hadn't been cleaned properly. And we had a long ways to go to fix it, but we did. We got lucky, we didn't have any infections associated with it, but clearly places did. But that's our process. I keep track of them on a weekly basis, and we haven't had issues in years with it.
No, I just wanted to comment. That's great advice, actually. That's a great way to, you know, potentially save a lot of money. So the other thing I left out in our protocol is what we did do, instead of filling with just tap water, we put a gross filter on there. I think it's a 100 micron filter, and then it goes into a 2 micron sterilizing water filter, and those get changed every 3 months. So.
Willie Dosh, MUSC CVP program. Jim, follow-up question on that. When it does come back, the plate count above 100, and you send in twice in the 4-week rolling period, and you send an NTM and it comes back negative, what do you do to get the plate count back down? Is there like a deep clean?
So it's a great question. So usually it's not twice in a row. So they test it and it comes back high, but they test it like you guys do right before they clean it. And so then the next week when they test it again, it may not be high. And that's why we do that rolling 4-week instead of just one after another. Because we want to find a system that maybe there's a problem with that we're not identifying right away. And so that's why we do it that way. But usually there's been a couple of times where it's been 2 weeks in a row that they've been high, but high for us is actually 20 or 30 or 40 on the HPC, because almost always it comes back 0, 1 or less than 1. The less than 1 is the 0 indicator, at least from our labs.
So this is Dafne from MUSC, PEDS. So our water lines were clear. We had clear tubes, and over the time period of all this bleaching, when we were using the heater coolers, you'd see the water start off clear, and then it would slowly turn gray, and it gets just darker and darker and darker, and these machines are just being kind of eaten on the inside by all the bleach and all this product. And we have I've been drinking. No, we have since switched to the Mr. Frosties, but I'm curious for groups that are still doing these very aggressive treatments, how are your machines holding up? Are you still seeing this gray water, this breakdown in the water?
We have the blue
I see nothing. I see nothing.
Hi, Renee Dickey, Eisenhower Medical Center, Rancho Mirage, golf capital of the world. We had the T3s. We did the cleaning. If y'all know Billy Wood, you can imagine Billy Wood and I cleaning the heater coolers every Wednesday during TAVRs. And then we had a cardio equip in the corner. So the T3s had to be taken out of service because they were so old. And we bought 2 more cardio equips. And I don't know, like the cardio equips are to take them apart, to clean them, like we have to go get 2 scrub techs to lift that big compressor off so that we can clean it. And it works, but you're only supposed to do it every quarter. And they've been cleaned so far, but they're brand new. But I was wondering, what was the problem you were having is everybody having infection problems with the cardio equips too?
In doing the research, the hospital in doing the research before making a purchase, there's so many recalls out there and so many infection control issues, it raised a red flag. And they were like, we need to buy more than one. We don't want to spend the money on something that's having this kind of issues. Look for something else. So that's why we went to the hemotherm. We looked at Mr. Frosty, but again, they weren't going to fork out that cash. And we went to hemotherm, we ordered it, and we're told, ordered them, and we're told delivery dates only 6 weeks later to say, time out, we're not selling them in the United States anymore. It was ordered. Had we ordered them 2 weeks before, they would have shipped. But, and so now we're kind of in a holding pattern, like what to do, we are literally short one heater cooler, and we typically keep a backup like anybody else. So if one goes down, we can just switch it out. But we have more pumps than we do heater coolers now. So that's not a good place to be.
As far as your comment about the water, so we switched to Prolistica versus bleach. So I was curious if anybody else has switched to Prolistica versus using bleach.
Yeah, what is that?
Okay. So, yeah. Oh, gotcha, yeah. So it's just
One person.
It's an enzymatic cleaner, I guess you want to say.
It's the only thing that destroys the film of the.
Yeah. Exactly. Because bleach isn't supposed to actually.
The Prolistica was the only thing that destroyed the film for the MTM.
No. So you don't get that purple gray stuff.
I understand the problems with cardio equip. We had the same thing. But if you're not following the IFU, whether you think you're higher than them or better than them, you've relinquished that manufacturer from any kind of lawsuit because you are not following what they say to do. So you got to be thinking about that. We had, and it's not just with the cardio equip. We had some other oxygenators, some other things we talked about, some parameters they had. And if you aren't following theirs, it comes down to court. They're going to say you didn't follow what was in the IFU. So you got to worry about that. And if you have a hospital that'll endorse that and what you're doing and take that liability, more power to you. But I mean, we don't.
No, and you also need to double check the IFU because the Levanova, you're required to use Clorox, not store brand bleach. It has to be the Clorox bleach.
I'm wondering, with all the cleaning of the instruments, the heaters, how many of you are actually following OSHA guidelines? Are you sticking your head in there and sucking all that bleach in every week, every day? I remember doing that when I was at an institution. When I was younger, I didn't care. I was Sidex dumping it in and breathing it in. I'm just curious if anybody else is, are they following OSHA guidelines for the cleaning?
Precautions when you're cleaning your devices? Go ahead. I breathe it all in. It's a great point. Good for you.
Yeah. Scott Snyder, Duke. So, with all of the focus on water quality, I kind of lost track. I'm not sure if it even matters anymore, but going back to the original issue of the the cracks in the seals that were leaking the water inside and interacting with the fans and the circuitry. I don't know if this is common knowledge, but we just realized that on the CardioQuips, when the ice block expands too much and then melts and the tank overfills, the panels on the side are not watertight. I don't know if everybody was aware of that or not. So what happens is the water leaks over and then goes inside the panels. You end up with the same problem. It's sitting stagnant inside the machine. So, and you can see it dripping out onto the floor.
So we've got 10 minutes left before we have our next session break real quick. Along those lines, we talked about canceling cases because of equipment or disposables. One of our topics, and we're going to beat this a little bit to death during the conference, but what about canceling cases due to staffing? Kind of in the same vein, but anybody want to comment on current difficulties in hiring, or we can dabble into perfusion schools, however you want to take it.
This is going to be a contentious opinion, but we've never done it, at least as long as I've been at either institution I've been at previously. But I don't think you're ever going to get change if you need change with your administration if you don't cancel cases. That's just my hot take.
Anyone else?
So how, with that in mind, how hard do you work to get for the chief perfusionist or people that make the decisions too? How hard do you work to make it work? Or has anybody stood up and said, we can't do this? No? Call in sick.
So Zach Gorman, University of Iowa again. One thing that they did, they were having staffing issues, and the ECMO program there is very robust. And so perfusionists no longer cover TAVR bailouts. That's all handled by our ECMO specialist. That took a great weight off the perfusion department, and they're able to do cases that way. So if you're having problems, maybe that's one route you could take. Yeah, very
Where do people
controversial.
stand with giving stuff away? Who's booing? Come on. Booing. You don't want to give stuff away. 99. 99. Yeah. Oh, shit, sorry.
You got to be careful what you wish for. I've already seen it in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We have a school open. I'm in a children's hospital. We do these students. There's no jobs in the Dallas-Fort Worth area now. I saw this in '92 when I graduated. I started at school. It was $100,000. I took a job for $45,000 in California. 18 months. If we're a small profession, fills up quick. There's some schools here that are graduating huge amounts of people and making millions of dollars and not necessarily putting out the best quality and thinking about the profession. People are saying 500 people are going to retire. Who knows if people are going to retire? People are going to retire when they're comfortable. So just be aware, a lot of people have never seen this. And in '92, it took 20 years for it to recover. So if you haven't seen that and lived through it, then you don't know what's going to come. So you got to be careful about this.
I was gonna say, as far as staffing wise, for me particularly, a lot of it's been more of a collaborative effort in understanding that everybody shouldn't be expected to work 24/7. So if there's something that comes up that's out of the ordinary, it's more of a talking within the group, including surgeons, anesthesia, PAs, and perfusion, and figuring out what's the best plan with the patients that we have and who needs the care that we need at that time, and then adjust accordingly so then everybody can be at the top of their game when needed, if that makes sense.
So has anybody's department canceled the case in the last year because of staffing?
Yes,
Anybody?
we have. At MUSC
1, 2.
Children's, we have canceled a case. And I graduated in 2011, and that was right around the 2008 recession. And I remember in my graduating class, no one had a job come graduation day. There was one that was close to signing, but no one had a job in my class of 13. And even though people may or may not retire and all that, but there is a change in our profession. I think this working 24/7, give up your family, give up your life, give up your conferences is not necessarily what's going on anymore. There's a work-life balance, and there's a quality over quantity aspect that I think is shifting. And I think the newer generations are helping us see some of that. And I think it's really important for everyone, especially those really amazing managers that are fighting for you, that those quality perfusionists that are working and giving their all are worth keeping. And you don't want to lose those to maybe go to a cabbage valve factory that, doing 1 or 2 cases a week, and that's it. You want to keep those people that are motivated, that are coming to conferences like this to learn and to share. And maybe an extra staff member is worth fighting for. So, and it's hard to do. It's hard to convince upper management, but you don't necessarily have to give up a family or a life. You can have an outstanding perfusionist that is also supporting their national organizations, and that's also happy doing so.
Hey, Dafne.
So that's my
What if
soapbox.
I said I thought you were getting soft?
I know.
No, I'm not.
I miss my babies.
I'm seriously.
No, I know. This might be my soapbox.
I'm not joking.
but-
Let's argue a bit.
Yeah.
So the sharing and healing and caring cost money
Mhm.
and needs more perfusionists. Our hospital's going to hire them. Salaries are really high right now.
I mean, good luck.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cities that have great need for perfusionists, and the cost of living is astronomical. People cannot afford houses. I can't afford to have kids. Definitely not in San Francisco. Absolutely not. It's a different ballgame now than it ever has been, and I think that there is a huge generational divide where a lot of people are encouraging the younger staffers to just, suck it up. That's what I had to do. That's what you have to do. And I'm in the middle. I'm a millennial. I'm not a Gen Zer, but I can totally see both sides of this coin. And I think we are losing a generation. There's extreme issues with mental health. People that feel very, very burnt out. I mean, I came from a team. I'm not going to mention the team. They went from 14 perfusionists, full staffed, amazing. Everything was great, amazing infrastructure. The pay could have been better, but we had great surgeons. Work-life balance was excellent. They went down to 6 people because once there's a problem, if it does not get addressed, people start leaving. And once one person in leadership leaves and no one fills that vacuum, everyone's out the door. It can happen so quickly. My team that I came from lost, I think, 9 people in less than a year. So all I can say is, I hope you guys have it like that. I hope you know your staff members, because it can be a very, very slippery slope when people are unhappy and burnt out.
Forgive me, but Dafne, your soapbox, between the MSTCVS and Perform, where I work with hospitals in Michigan around the country, and then the AMSEC Quality Committee, Donnie knows, I'm kind of in a unique position. I get a lot of feedback from a lot of people around the country, which is interesting. And there's 2 sides to that, Dafne. Every time I have a discussion with perfusionists around the country, the number 1 or number 2 topic is staffing. And she's spot on about, and I try to be neutral about this, but baby boomers, you're right about your generation. I mean, and if baby boomers don't recognize that there is and that's not going to change, right? It's about family, and it's about, all the things that you got to do whatever you do. It's like, no. The flip side is, and I've seen in the collaborative and I see around the country, you're coming out and making more money potentially than ever before. And maybe it's just because I'm a veterinarian too, but that was pounded into us, but you're professionals. So the flip side is what I hear is, I'm coming out and making $190,000, but I come in and do my case and go home. I've got a family, I've got this other stuff. Being a part of professional is then afterwards, you're not done until you enter data, because that's expected of the AMSEC standards and guidelines. And I agree completely, because I get a lot of pushback from the young people about the baby boomers don't understand. We want to have a life, and you are spot on. The flip side is, as part of a profession, it's not just I come in and do my case and I go home. There is a lot more to this, right? And as you said, eventually this job market isn't going to be the same. And if you haven't done all that stuff, you're going to be gone. So I would just kind of beg on both sides, baby boomers, you have to understand, it's never going back to that, and their generation is never going to think like you did. Well, I missed my kid's graduation, I missed my kid's birth, that's what I have to do. The flip side is, if you're coming into this, remember this is a profession, and there is more expected beyond you for you outside of just pumping a case and going home. I'm sorry, that's my soapbox.
Can we make one more comment here? Then we're going to take a quick break to reset, and we can keep this going.
Jason Penn, Sarasota Memorial Hospital. I don't even know if it's a piggyback onto what Don just said, but I started perfusion in 1988, and we would never cancel a case. It didn't matter how many hours you worked. And if I heard, it was about 10 years ago, if I heard the word work-life balance one more time, I was going to vomit in my throat. I just couldn't stand it. I really couldn't. But what Don said made a lot of sense, because there was a time where I almost lost my family, lost my wife, because I became a workaholic because I had to. I had to work that hard. And so it was the second time that I became a director, and I said, work-life balance, maybe that's a really good idea. So I learned a lot about that. So as you said, the flip side. So yeah, I've lived through it. And even now, though, I have to say that I can't imagine, and looking around the room, canceling a case. I mean, we've had 2 people raise their hand to cancel a case because you work 24 hours. It just doesn't happen. And that does need to be explored. A hospital I worked at in Kalamazoo, Michigan, we put an ECMO in, talked to anesthesia, said we can only run one room. I haven't been drinking, by the way, I just couldn't say it. So we could only one, and we got support, and they said absolutely, because that's like a case. So if you have a good relationship, that's great. But the reality is, if it's not an ECMO, you're just working a lot, and you have short staff, you're going to do the case, and I don't know what the answer is. One more comment from Greg.
Thanks, sir. Thanks.
We can pick it back up after.
So I really liked what Dafne said about work-life balance. I do think that's the future, and Don said the same thing. One of my concerns I have as a manager, I've been doing this since, I've been a perfusionist for over 26 years, been in charge for about 15 years. One of my concerns is the expectation of a work-life balance from day one. I think in my experience, it takes probably 5 busy years to make an excellent perfusionist. And if we just say, yes, you're going to work 25 to 30 hours a week, that's just going to be delayed, right? So it takes a long time to train, at least at my center, because we do 1,000 cases, 10 different surgeons, tons of different stuff. So I think we should be talking about work-life balance, but it's not going to be consistent for everyone. It's going to change over time. And I think that should be part of the conversation.
All right, we'll take a 3-minute break, and we'll come right back.
For those online, please remember to switch the next session from 5 to 6. Thank you.